Rachel. Okay. Pilpulei. We're on Lamed Vav Amud Bet, right before the wide lines. Pilpulei.
Peppers?
Yeah. But it's not the regular peppers. It's the peppers that you make, the black pepper, yeah. So we're talking about a dried pepper. Rav Sheshet Amar Shakol. Rav Amar Lo Klum. You don't make any bracha on it at all. V'az de Rav Tamei. Rav is going according to his own reasoning. The Amar Rav Kast Pilpulei B'Yom Kippurei. Patur. If someone chews and swallows little peppercorn seeds on Yom Kippurim, on Yom Kippurim, he's patur from karet. Dried peppercorn seeds on Yom Kippur, if you chew them and swallow them, Rava says patur. You don't need anything. It's not a real achilah. Okay? Koses means to eat something and not in its normal form. So, this is a very weird thing to do. To take dried things, not to put them into a cooked dish and cook them, but to eat them like this, dried out, you patur. Kas zangavila b'yom kippuri patur. Same thing. If someone takes ginger Yom Kippur, chews it up, it's not, you patur from karet. It's not a real achilah. So just like you see that Rava holds that it's not considered eating for Yom Kippur, it's also not considered a food for berachot. And that's why Rava said that if you eat it, you don't make any bracha. Meitavei, the Gemara asked the kasha on Rava. Haya Rabbi Meir Omer. The Torah says in the psukim of Orla, Mimashma shenem avaraltem Orla toet piyo. En yodeh she'etz ma'achalhu. If it talks about piyo, obviously it's talking about an eitz, right? Where do you get fruits from? A tree. So why did it have to say at the beginning of the pasuk as an introduction, Unitatem kol eitz ma'achal? When you go to the land and you will plant fruit trees, then the first 3 years, va'aratem arlatot priyo. Just say that the peirot of Eretz Yisrael are asur for 3 years. And I'll know that it's talking about trees. Elamata b'lomar eitz ma'achal. So why does the Torah tell you eitz ma'achal? Lehavi eitz shetam etzo priyo shoveh. Meaning, the tree itself has to be eitz ma'achal, a tree that you can eat. Which tree tastes like its fruit? Ve'zehu ze papilpilin. So it's coming to be marbeh, not only regular fruit trees, not only trees that grow things, but even the peppercorn tree, you're also chayav in orla. Now what's the great chidush? If it's a tree, so let me be chayav in orla. So the answer is l'lamedcha she'apilpilin chayav in ba'arla, u'lamedcha she'ein Eretz Yisrael chaser klum. It's there to teach you, number one, that pilpul and achayev and orla, they're not a yerek, they're not a vegetable, they're a tree. And number two, that Eretz Yisrael is not lacking anything. Not in poverty will you eat bread. Lo techsar kol ba. Nothing will be lacking. So, you see from this braita here, that pilpul is ra'ui la'achila. Because if pilpul was not ra'ui to be eaten, it never would have been asur with the isur of orla. If the Torah writes there's an isur orla, obviously it's edible. It's an edible item. If it's not an edible item, it's not a peri. So how can Rava say that you don't make any bracha and he lets you eat it on Yom Kippurim because it's not eating anything. It's not the way you eat it, dried out. So the rest of the kasha. Ha betivta. The braita of Rabbi Meir is speaking about fresh and moist peppercorns. Those are ra'ui la'achila. Those you need to make a bracha. Those you cannot eat on Yom Kippur. And those have an isur orla. However, Habi Aveshta, when Rava and Rav Sheshet were arguing about, was a dried peppercorn. That's not ra'ui la'achila. And therefore Rava says, you don't make any bracha. Amri le Rabbanan le Meremar. Kas zangavi le Yom Kippur patur. The Amar Rava Haye Malta. How can you tell me that if you chew and eat this dried peppercorn on Yom Kippurim, you're patur? The Amar Rava Haye Malta. A malta was a very interesting dish. It was made out of ginger, but it was like a dough that you made out of ginger. Rashi calls it lituryu belaz. And on the laz over here, they say mekacha ta'asiyo mibsamim ktushim bidvash. Some sort of bisamim, smelling thing, nice smelling cloves, mixed with honey. And the base over here of this amalta was ginger. Okay? Made some sort of gingery dough with honey. That comes from Kush, from India. Right? A little Indian. So, Sharia, it's allowed to be eaten. And what do you mean it's allowed to be eaten? Meaning, there's no problem of bishul akum on it. We know that there's an isur midrabanan, you're not allowed to eat what a goy cooks for you. And so the Gemara says over here, if a goy cooked it for you, there's no problem. Explain why in a second. And you also make a pri adama. The reason why there's no isur bishul akum is because bishul akum is only when something is eaten when it is cooked only. However, if the item is eaten raw and not only cooked, right, and there's no issur of a goy cooks it. There's also another issur of goyim that we're also knocking out, which is called gi'ulei nachrim. Rashi says by the word sharia, he says Eba loy mishum bishulei nachrim, v'loy mishum gi'ulei nachrim. So that means even if you cooked it in the pot of goyim, it's not an isser. Why? Because the taste of the pots of the goyim that are going into this item are going to give it a bad taste, which is called noten tam lifgam. It gives it a detrimentary. It's not good. It's not beneficial, the taste, and therefore, it's mutar. Or another pshat is because when they made this hamalta, they used pots that were not generally used for anything else, and that's why it's okay. But the main point is over here that why isn't it asur for bishulei nachim? And what's the answer to that question? Because no, bishulei nachim, the goyim eat this raw. Everybody eats this raw. Not only goyim, everybody eats this raw. So even if the goy cooked it, it's not a problem. The goy eats it raw, so that means that it's able to be eaten raw. I thought you told me before that zangvil raw can't be eaten. So the Gemara says, "Lokasha haber right? Haber tivta haber yaveshta." That Rava says that zangvil can be eaten when it's raw. That's fresh, moist zangvil. If you eat it on Yom Kippurim, it's patur. He was talking about dried zangvil, just like we answered before. For the pilpulin, this difference, we're answering now for the zangvil as well. Okay.
Rabbi, didn't you just say that it's with dough you're saying, Rashi mentioned? Wouldn't it be then considered a pot of some sort?
Yeah, but it's not a pot because it's not made out of the 5-minute dagan. So, it is, it's fresh stuff here by this dough. It's fresh, moist ginger, not dried out ginger. So you're not going to make hamotzi lechem. No, it's because not a lechem. Lechem is only for we're about to learn that sugya right now.
The bishul akum, your goy is not allowed to cook for you, right?
Right.
On Shabbos, if you're sick, that's mutter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or how about in a restaurant when the guy's cooking for you, when you put on the ish? That's not called bishul akum?
Right. Right.
It's not?
Right.
Okay, and then you said you're chayav koros, you're not chayav koros.
On Yom Kippur.
On Now, are you chayiv anything else? Is there a different issue? Or no? You're not chayiv anything.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So, great to have you back. So now, you ready? Chavitz kedera. What's chavitz kedera? It's a food that you make from flour, oil, honey. Rashi says over here, it's like chalav shechavtzu bekeva. So it's kafui bektera, and Rashi says that that's all these things: oil, flour, honey. He says it's called avrusti in Old French.
Can you make it Saturday night for us?
So, okay, so that's what it's made out of. It has flour in there, botai. V'chein daisa. Daisa is basically crushed wheat. It's like a cereal. Rav Yehuda Amar, and you cook it up. Rav Yehuda Amar she'akol niyeh b'dvaro. Rav Kahana Amar borei minei mizonot. It's machloket if it's she'akol or mizonot. So the Gemara says, "B'daisa grei dekuli alma lo pliga de borei minei mizonot." If it's simple and it's just crushed wheat that you cook up, everybody agrees borei minei mizonot. There's no machloket. Ki pligi. So when do they have this machloket? B'daisa ke'en chavitz kedera. Which means it wasn't just cooked up, crushed wheat. It had honey in there. It was like a chavitz kedera. It was like a dish that you added some honey. So Rav Yehuda Amar she'akol. Why does Rav Yehuda say she'akol? Because savaduv sha'ika, because he feels that the honey is the main thing. Because the honey was the majority. And also the reason why everybody wanted to eat this was for the honey. And the flour was just there to enhance it and make it even better. But the main dish over here is a honey dish. Rav Kahana Amar borei minei mizonot. Savar smida ikar. The smida, which is flour, is the main thing here. Okay, now, what do you mean it's the main thing? But we know that it's not. We just said that the reason why everybody wants it, they love honey. And they also like it with the flour. It's even better. It gives it tastes better. And we also said that it's the majority, the honey. So what does it mean if Kahana is saying, no, the flour is the main thing? And the answer is, Rabbatai, because we're about to see right now, Amar Rav Yosef kavatet Rav Kahana mistavra. It's reasonable to say like Rav Kahana, the Rav Shmuel the Amri Tavayu, because Rav and Shmuel both say together. This is very important, Rabbatai. It's one of the most important Gemarot in the Perek and the next Amud. It's very important halachot here. This Rav and Shmuel is the tenants of Ketzad Mevorchim. They say together here. You know, sometimes Rav and Shmuel argue. These are the greatest Amoraim, the earliest. Here Rav and Shmuel say it together. Kol sheyeshu mechameshet aminim mivachin alav borei min izdonot. Anything that has inside of it, from the 5 minim, which are the 5 grains, which are what? Wheat, barley, spelt, oats, and rye. You make borei min izdonot. What's the chidush? They're mazon. The chidush is kol sheyesh bo, even if it has a little bit inside of it, which means it's the tafel. It's the secondary ingredient is wheat or barley or spelt oats or rye, or the 12th ingredient. But they're there to fill you up and for it to taste good. They become the kings. Everything else turns into the subordinate, the secondary item. And you make it mizdonot. And that's what Rav Kahana said, that this daisa, even though it has more dvash, and the main reason I want to eat it is for the dvash, but since I also have some smida, some flour in there from the 5 grains, mizonot. Because mizonot is the main staple, our main diet, staple of our diet, and it's the most important part of our diet to give us energy and carb, however you want to say it, with all your lingo, with your terminology of 2020. Next year they'll change it. Something else, not carbs, it's this factor. But the point is, the Chachamim knew a long time ago that this is mazon, like we saw yesterday. This and only this is called mazon. Yeah.
Chicken covered in breadcrumbs.
Oh, you're going to the heart of Shilas right away.
Well, I mean, if you tell me X, and now you tell me...
Okay, so the Maisa, the way I remember, is that chicken breadcrumbs, it's a very hard shaila because it's such a miyut. I mean, I'm having chicken tonight. It's not like the majority. It's like 99%. And that's what I just want to give it a little more. I think they say that how thick is the breadcrumb. The truth is that everything I said just now, I don't want to get into chicken and breadcrumbs. Because really, if I want to be loyal to what I said now, you have to say Mizonis and that's it. That's what we're saying right now. Now, Lamaisa, it's not so pashut.
So if it's really thick breadcrumbs, you might have to say Mizonot on breadcrumbs. That's what you're saying.
It's for sure. If it's a thick breadcrumb, sure. The question is if you also have to say a shehakal on the chicken. I really, let's wait till the end of the sugya because it's mamish. Okay. It's like almost like, it's like, if I tell you that you also have to make shehakal, so I'm just basically contradicting myself now. And you're right, and you're not going to be able to, we have to right now be very loyal to these words. Happens to be, Tosafot says, very famous Tosafot, that there is one exception that I'll tell you right now. That if the flour is placed in there, l'devek ba'alma, just to hold it together for the consistency, as a binding agent, for example, licorice. When I grew up, we used to make mizonot on licorice. Because we used to say this Gemara. I mean, I didn't know this Gemara, but that's what the people used to tell me when I was a kid. If it has flour in there, so you have to make a mizonot. But then, I heard later, and I think this is the psak of most poskim, that no, it's shehakal. Why? Because the reason why Twizzlers puts it in is not to fill you up, because they're trying to put some wheat in there. They want you to have it for breakfast and to be full. No. That's how the Twizzler comes out right, for the consistency. Use it as a binding agent. So that's the case of Tosafot. There, he says you don't have to make a barim and mizonot. Now it's interesting, Tosafot over there says it's better to be machmir and to eat such a type of item after you wash tamotzi. So you don't get into this question. Tosafot doesn't just say it so simple. So, okay, about Twizzlers, people are going to start eating Twizzlers only after they wash. We have to look up in Shulchan Aruch. You're going to see, after we finish Ketzim Mevarchim, there's about 20 cases that there's probably more, that there's a machloket exactly what bracha you make, so therefore the best would be to eat it after you wash. I have a friend, I learned Ketzim Mevarchim with him, Be'iyun, and he said, I don't eat. And then he said, I just eat one thing. I wash. Whenever I want to eat anything, I wash. I can't eat anything. There's 100 machlokes because even after the Gemara, there's those machlokes rishonim. In the psak in the Gemara, what that man the armor meant. There's many machlokes. Okay, let's go weiter. Talk to Heilige Gemara. We have to move.
We're not talking about rice today, are we?
We are talking about rice.
Okay, good.
Right now.
What's the other one?
So rice is coming right now. Rice is the whole next moment. You ready? Kufa. We go back to what we said before. Anything that has inside of it, even a minimal amount of chamesh haminim, is borei minei mizonot. It becomes the main factor, and everything is just there to enhance it, even though it's the minority. The itmar nami, and we also learned this is a second member of Rav and Shmuel. It sounds similar, but it's not. Rav Shmuel Damar Tavayu. Kol shehu mechameshet haminin mivachin elav borei minei mizonot. Not kol sheyesh bo, but kol shehu. Anything that is from the 5 grains you make mizonot, which means, you just said that. You said anything that has inside it the 5 minim you make mizonot. Now you have to say anything that is. Yeah, you need both. Why? Says the Gemara. Utzricha di'iyash minim kol shehu havayinim mishum de'ite be'ene. Aval al yedei taruvot lo. If you would tell me that whatever is from the Chameshet Haminin, I would say, because it means anything that is right here. This is spelt. You see, spelt. This is wheat. Okay, so it's right here. So I make a mizonot. Aval al yedei taruvot. But if it's not right here, I can't show it to you. It's just mixed into a different dish. It's all mixed in together. Lo. So then you don't make borei minei mizonot. So kamash malan that kol sheyesh bo, that you make a mizonot even if it's just inside something and I can't identify it, it's mixed in. you also have to say mizonot. And if it's the minority, like we said before, kol sheyesh bo.
What's the difference between kol sheyesh bo and...
You're here right now. Let me just finish the next part of it. Maybe you'll get it better. The iyash me'inon kol sheyesh bo. And if I just said, as long as there's some of the 5 minim inside this dish, you make mizonot, have amin, I would have said, okay, kol sheyesh bo mechameshet minim. Anything that has from the 5 minim, in that you make a bracha mizonot, even if it's not the majority. Aval orez v'dochan. But rice and millet, I think they consider, many Rishonim learn that it's millet. Lo, mishum dal yidei ta'aruvot. Aval ite be'enei, ne'ma afilu orez v'dochan nami mevarchin alav b'reim mizonot. I would say, okay, you're telling me that if you have the minority of the dish is mizonot, is the 5 grains, you make a mizonot. So what are you excluding? You're excluding that anything else that's the minority in a dish, you won't follow. Even if it's rice and millet, which are pretty filling things, but they're not the 5 grains. So if you mix them into something else, and they're not the majority, we're not going to follow what their bracha is. But if you have, we're not going to make a mizonot. Sounds like, but if you have rice or millet by themselves, there's nothing else, they are what you're eating, then you make a mizonot on them. That's why they had to say, no. Kol shehu michameshet aminim borei mizonot. Anything that is from the 5 grains, you make mizonot. If it's not from the 5 grains, you don't make mizonot. Even, so therefore, kamash v'lon, kol shehu michameshet aminim, hu de mevachin alav borei mizonot. Le'afuke orez v'dochen le'afilu ite benein, lo mevachin borei mizonot. That's coming to exclude rice and millet, that although they're very filling, and you might compare them to the 5 grains and say they're a grain, I eat them just as much, like if you look at the cereal boxes today, right? Rice Krispies, and then you have Raisin Bran. Big deal, what's the difference? They're all the cereals that fill you, the energy, the carbs, the this. No. Says Rav and Shmuel, you don't make a mizonot on those things. Only the 5 grains. In addition to that, they said that they're so mizonot, and they're so special mizonot, right? Because we know that they went up a bracha. Really, mizonot should be hadama, they come from the ground. But they had an iluya. Mitoch hashivutam, we gave them a special bracha. That bracha is so special, such a special item that even if it's the minority, you keep it. Okay, so is it good? Did I answer your question?
I just don't understand what the difference is between it has inside or it is in a way. Like, what's the difference? Where does it...
Has inside is a chiddush that even if you don't see it, and it's the minority, it's a huge difference. So it should be batel.
But they're both mizonot, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's telling you that even in that case it's mizonot.
Even if you can't see that it has inside.
Not only you can't see, but it's really the secondary, you would think it's a secondary item. Because it's...
We just went through that. We said the secondary comes at first.
Correct. The Gemara is just telling you that... Right, but the Gemara is going over that because it's just.
So regardless, it's not after me now. I mean, they're both mizonot, regardless if you could see it or you can't see it.
Right, and regardless if it's the majority or minority. And they're also teaching you that the only thing you ever make a mizonot on these 5 grains. Orez v'dochen, you don't make a mizonot even when they're by themselves.
Okay. So my understanding, anything that has anything of the 5 grains,
we'll see exactly. Yes.
Anything. Okay.
Unless it's there for consistency purposes.
Unless it's there to pull you like the licorice. If that's not the
right.
Okay.
I mean, it gets difficult. It gets complicated. Let's say you ever heard, I don't know, the Sfardim make latkes on Chanukah, right? So there are some people that have a recipe for latkes, or let's say they make. You ever heard of cheese latkes? So it's like made out of eggs with cottage cheese and sugar and milk and flour. So then you pour it into the pan that's sizzling the oil. It's very good cheese latkes. Okay, very nice. So you eat some latkes and cheese in one shot for Chanukah, right? You're supposed to have both. So, but the flour, it depends how much. So then it usually depends how much flour the lady put in, because if you put in a little bit, so why is the recipe called for flour? So it doesn't fall apart.
It depends why you're putting the flour. You're saying.
Yes.
Really, that's what
Yes,
the flour,
but if you
the taste,
but if you put it in to give
Make
it
it stick
to,
or whatever.
but if you put in more, then you know that the purpose and the reason why is so that it should be a little bit of a filling item and it tastes better. Then it's mizonot, the whole thing. Even if the majority is the milk and the cottage cheese and the eggs and the sugar, it doesn't matter. Okay, it says the Gemara. So really, that's what they're coming to teach us, Rav and Shmuel, that you don't make a mizonot on rice and millet. Now we have to follow all these braitot. We're going to have a lot of different braitot coming. We have to, like I always tell you in Yiddish, halt cup. You have to hold them in your head. This is number 1, 2, 3, 4, what we're putting together. So it says like this. They brought a person a bread made out of rice or a millet bread. Okay? They made a bread out of rice flour or millet flour. So, what do? You make a bracha beforehand and after. Doesn't tell you what bracha. It says, Kimasek dera. Masek dera is like a pot dish, a dish that you cooked in a pot from the 5 minim, from the 5 grains. So that's the same bracha you make on rice bread. Here we're talking about bread, slice of bread, but it's made out of rice flour or millet flour. What bracha do you make on it? The same bracha, it says in the Braita, of masek dera, of a dish that I cooked like an oatmeal, kind of. That's what it sounds like. Oats are one of the 5 grains. You cooked a dish in a pot.
For example, like what do you mean?
Like I just said, oatmeal. You cook the 5 species in a pot. Whatever bracha you make before and after, that's what you do. That's what it says. We're not going to guess all the brachot yet. Let the Gemara develop it. The Gabei Ma'asek Deira Tanya. And regarding this pot, so you make, what do you do on the bread? Like the pot. And what do you do on the pot? And on the pot, we learned the Braita. It says, Batchila mivarech alav borei minim mizonot. You make a borei minim mizonot. Okay? V'labsof mivarech alav baracha achat me'en shalosh. You make ala michya. Bracha achat me'en shalosh. What does that mean? Ala michya. Why does that mean ala michya? Because you're making one bracha me'en from shalosh. Because you're mentioning all 3 concepts of the 3 brachot of Birkat Hamazon in the one bracha. So whenever you see that, that means ala michya. Okay? So that means that the Braita is saying that you do the same for, the first Braita said you do the same for rice bread. So it means the rice bread gets a borei minim mizonot. And a ala michya. So that's exactly, that contradicts Rav and Shmuel. Because Rav and Shmuel said the only thing you ever make mizonot on are the 5 species. And they came to exclude rice and millet. But here we have a Braita that says rice bread gets the same bracha as a cooked dish of the 5 grains, and there's a Braita that tells us that you make a mizonot on that.
But the other dishes go into minority, right? They go into the front. They go into the main.
No, there is no minority there. It's just them. It's just oats. You cook oats in water.
Okay, but it's not just rice, though, right?
Here it is. It's rice bread.
So just rice that turns into bread without.
It's rice flour. Yeah, rice flour.
Without the 5 minim.
Yeah, without the 5 minim. That's the 5 minim. But it says you to make the same bracha as oatmeal. And what do you make on oatmeal? The other Braita says mizonot. So that means that the rice bread is mizonot. Rav and Shmuel said, stira. So the Gemara says, Kimasek kedera v'lo kimasek kedera. It didn't say you make a mizonot. It said you make the bracha of maaseh kedera. Maaseh kedera means what the actions that you do in the pot. The pot. Now, it's like a maaseh kedera, but it's also not like a maaseh kedera. Okay, meaning what? That it's only in one detail, it's like a maaseh kedera. Meaning, maaseh kedera demavachin alav tchila v'sof. It's like a pot dish that you have to make 2 berachot, meaning different than what you do on bread. What would you do on bread? You would make hamotzi lechem min haaretz, and what would you do after the bread? You would make birkat hamazon. So the Oats that get cooked in a pot, they didn't make it. They didn't make it to the top, to the gold medal, the Olympic gold medal here. They didn't make it to the bread. They could have, if you would have taken these same oats and grinded them, make a flour, mix them, and then bake them, it would have been a... But since you cooked them in a pot, they were... masechet is one step lower. They didn't get the highest, and they stayed mizonot, and they didn't get the bekat hamazon. So therefore, they didn't turn into bread. So therefore, that's what the Braita is saying. Rice bread is like a masechet. Masechet didn't turn into bread. They didn't either turn into bread. They didn't make it to bread. That's number one. That's all it meant, that it was a masechet. But what?
You're saying the rice bread is cooked in the pot?
No. The rice bread, the Braita says, is masechet. It is similar in berachot, meaning to say, don't give it the status of bread. Just like you don't give oatmeal. Oatmeals are made out of the same exact ingredients as oat bread. But it didn't, no, it's not oat bread. It's oat dish.
Why are we calling it
So
bread?
because it is a rice bread. A rice bread that you actually made like a real bread, like a flour, like a regular bread, will not make it to the bread category. Just like masechet of oats didn't make it, they don't either make it. So they don't get hamotzi lechem arts and they don't get bekat hamazon. But v'lo ki masechet, but it didn't mean to compare it to masechet that you get the exact bracha of masechet. That we were never comparing. We weren't trying to say the positive aspects of masechet you have in rice bread. We were just saying it's compared to masechet that it doesn't have in its negative aspects that we're comparing. I mean, just like masechet didn't make it, you also didn't make it, even though you're a real bread. But in what you do with rice bread, that's not similar to masechet at all. Why? Because the ilu b'masechet, because by masechet, by oatmeal, b'atchila borei mizonot, v'labsov bracha achat mein shalosh. You make mizonot and ala michya for my oatmeal or my farina, which is made out of wheat, and I cook it in a dish, that you make mizonot. But for ilu hacha, but bread made out of rice or millet, even though I actually treated it like bread and I made it into a real bread, at the beginning you'll make a she'akol, and at the end you'll make a borei nefashot. So Rav and Shmuel are not being contradicted by the Braita at all, says the Gemara, and they can still say what they're saying. We can still follow them, that you make a she'akol on rice bread. It means you can make a bread, rice. Now, why would you make she'akol and not hadama? Okay, you don't want to say it's a mizonot. That's what Rav and Shmuel's halach is. Only the 5 special grains. Everybody, it's an exclusive club. Everybody else is out. Even us, we're just as filling as you. Yeah, even you. That's exactly what I meant. That's why I was talking about when I said all you 5. Not you and you, not millet and not rice. Okay, fine. But what bracha are we? Says the rice. You say, well, you grow from the ground, hadama. Well, so here it says that you make a she'akol. So why do you make a she'akol?
Because it's not in original form?
Exactly. Because since you already destroyed the rice, you made a flour out of it. So now it's not in its original form. You don't see the hadama anymore. So now it's a she'akol and a borei nefashot. Okay?
Where does everything turn into hamotzi with the 5 meaning and everything, with 5 grains? Where does it up from mizonot to hamotzi? Does it have to do with weight, with the size?
The truth is that...
Because it's the same thing, pretty much, mizonot and hamotzi.
Exactly. That's a sugya that's coming later on in the parak. But just a quick answer, it has to do with if they usually treat it like something that they're koveas su'udah on it. Now, there's also one other thing that means if you're not koveas su'udah on it, we'll see later. It's called pata ba'a b'kisnin. It's a bread that comes with other things. There's a machloket rishonim exactly what those other things are. Let's say it's mixed with sugar, but another way is that if you cook it in water, it usually doesn't make it. It's not because it doesn't have like bread-like properties. For example, Nobody goes over to a pot of oatmeal and say, oh, mommy, nice oat bread you just made for us. No, nobody said that. Why? Because nobody treats it like bread. Even though the same exact oats, you can grind them, mix them with water that's in the pot, put them in the oven, and everybody will say that's oat bread. The answer is because a whole different type of food comes out.
So how about taking, let's say, bread and making French toast out of it?
Okay, that's a sugya maybe on the next page on Lamed Zayin Lamed Beis. Rav Yosef, we're going to get to it. There's mamish hundreds of shaylas coming in this parak. Just let the Gemara develop. It's gonna be a gewaldik. So the Gemara says like this. V'chi orez lav ma'aseh k'deru. 1 second. So you're telling me now that rice is not considered masechet. That means if you take rice, you make bread out of it, it's not masechet. And if you take rice and you cook it in a pot with water, it's different than cooking oats in a pot. And you're not going to make a mizdonot. We learned in the Braita. The following are masechet. You ready? In regards to berachot, the following are masechet. Chilka. Chilka is a dish that you made out of wheat, make out of wheat or other types of grains that you divide into two. You take the wheat, you chop. Little thing, you chop the little kernels into two. So that's tragis is into three. Solet is fine flour. Zariz is 4 parts. Arsan is 5 parts. Ve'orez and rice. So it's mifurash. We have a braita that clearly says that orez, a dish out of rice, is the same exact bracha as chopped up, cooked 5 grains. It's mizonot. So the Gemara says, the whole time you're busy saying that the rice doesn't make it. Now it's beferish, braita. So the Gemara says, how many Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri? You're right. This braita is contradicting what we said before, but it's a tana that we don't follow. It's not Rav and Shmuel are not meshubah to this. It's Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. The Tanya, who's Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri? What does he say that we decided that he is this braita? The Tanya, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, orez min daganu, v'chayavin al chimutzo karet. Orez is one of the grains, and if you let it rise and you eat it on Pesach, it's karet.
What you say that?
Say this for as much as Friday over here.
Okay. Anyways, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, maybe he was from Germany or something. Don't worry about it. Okay.
That's what we don't follow.
Yeah, he's Ashkenazi. So it happens to be that we don't either follow Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, and we hold that you don't get karet. That's why I was laughing, because it's nothing to do with Sfadim. Yeah, because we also don't follow him, but the reason why we don't eat it is because it's similar and this and that and all these other reasons, because they used to have grains inside the rice, or because it's similar and it looks like it, but it's really ipush. Right. Well, that's why we keep rice. We don't sell our rice. I don't even sell my rice. If I have it, I just keep it. I just don't take it out. I put it away with the chametz. I just don't eat it on Pesach. That's it. And I actually eat kitniot. I eat it in Advil. I'll eat rice because whatever, meaning it's not rice, it's corn. All these kitniot, all these legumes that we don't eat, which are like rice, we eat if they're just used in medicine, for example. It's not like I don't ingest it at all. I just won't eat it as a dish. Fine. Anyways, but let's get to you see, this is the roots of everything. If you get from the bottom, then you'll understand everything with the Sfar and the Ashkenaz. The roots are that Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says, karet. Rice rises, it's one of the grains. And since it becomes chametz, therefore it qualifies as the right ingredient to make matzah. Which means matzah has to be made out of something that could become chametz, and you don't allow it to become chametz. So therefore it qualifies. Because yechayev karet, if you would eat it when it rises, therefore, v'adam yotzei bo yedecha v'ata b'pesach, so you can have matzot, rice. Okay? So this is what Tzvadim for sure can't do. And I'm telling you, we'd also do it. You can't have matzot of rice, because you're allowed to eat matzot. You don't feel like, we also agree that it doesn't become chametz. Fine. Therefore, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, he's the man da'amar that holds that Braita that said that Orez is one of the masechet, and you make mizonot, because he's of the opinion that Orez is one of the grains. So according to him, there's 7. Actually, he says 1, Orez over here. 6 doesn't say millet. The Rishonim speak that out. He says there's a 6th grain too. And it's mamash grain, and it rises. So he holds it's mizonot. But the Rabbanan don't agree with him at all. They say you can't use them for matzot. And if they rise, Rabotai, then what? You're not chayav karet. Why? Because it's not a real grain. And when it rises, that's not the same chemical, that's not the same thing. It's called ipush. It's ferment, it's like, it's not the regular process of when the dough ferments and it gets, it's a spoilage. So therefore it rises and it looks very similar to the chametz process, but it's not. And it's not one of the grains that rise. And therefore you can't make matzah. Oh, so the Rabbanan that argued with Rabbi Nuri, that's what Rav and Shmuel are going like. Rav and Shmuel go with the Rabbanan. That Orez is not one of the 5 grains. Okay? Good? So the Gemara says, V'Rabbanan lo. So you're telling me that the Rabbanan that hold that you're not chayav karet on rice, and you can't make matzot, they also hold that you don't make a mizonot on rice? Tanya, there's another bright that the Gemara brings down now. Hakoses et achita. If someone eats straight chita, which is not such a normal way of eating it, takes a kernel of wheat, eats it. Mivarech aleh borei pri hadama, because it grows from the ground, and you didn't create anything, any higher produce from this. Tachna, if you grind it up, ve'afa, and you made bread, ubishla, and then you take the bread, and you take that bread and you cook the bread in water. You throw it into like a soup. Bizman shaprustot kayamot. Then it depends. If the pieces of bread are still maintain their bread-like appearance, they didn't melt and just become watery and soupy. So then then they retain their status as bread, and even though they're wet and hot, whatever, in your soup, no, not croutons, because croutons may be different because they're not exactly this case. Let's try to be very specific and like narrow-minded almost to what the Braita is saying now, because the Braita said you grinded it and you baked bread and then you put it in your pot. So that's what it says. Croutons may be very different.
If you cut up the bread into small little pieces, grind it out.
Oh, it didn't say that. We'll talk about that soon. Mamish, we're going to talk about that soon on the next page. No, it didn't say that. Let's be very narrow-minded. It said pieces. You throw them in your soup.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right. That's a good example. That's what we're saying.
So you throw them in your bread and you throw them in the soup and then not have motzi anymore?
No, we so far said that if they stay around, then but ena prusot kayamot. Let's hear the brighter first. If the prusot are not kayamot because they melted in their cooking process, so the name lechem has just been erased. Disappears. That ain't lechem anymore. Lechem is not something that is floating around in my soup, little strands of, used to be a nice piece of bread. It's already melted in, and therefore it loses the name lechem. So what do you make on it? You find a little piece like that. But it's all gooey and messed up, right? Now it goes down, from lechem down to, it's mazon. It's still from the 5 grains. It's mazon. It's the main staple of our diet. So it's mizonot and ala michya.
Is it alston? Is it?
Yeah, let's just say yes. Yes. That's what pashtus. Yeah. Now, says the Braita, okay? Hakoses et haorez. Mivarech alav berei pri adama. If you chew rice, raw rice, whenever it says koses, it means to do it in a very unnatural, interesting way. You take rice and you eat it straight. It's borei pri adama. Tachno ve'afo v'shlom. Let's say I grind it up and make flour. And I bake it into a bread like we had before. And then I take the rice bread and I put it into my soup, or into water, hot water. Then afal pi she'aprisot kayamot, even though the pieces of the rice bread are maintained and they're there, they retain their appearance and everything is the same as before, besides that they're a little wet. You're not going to make more than a mizonot. The most you'll ever make, even though it's bread and it didn't lose its bread-like appearance and its consistency, it's there. No, the most you make is mizonot. So now the Gemara says, which man the Amar is this? Is it Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri? If it's Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, Ilem Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, the Amar Orez min degano, he says it's exactly like one of the other 5 grains. So then why would it have a different status than regular bread made out of the 5 grains that you put into your soup, which didn't fall apart? You make a hamotzi still, so why would rice be any different? Also make hamotzi lechem haaretz and bikat hamazon. So it must be this braita is not Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. It's the dissenting view, which is the Chachamim. And the Chachamim said that rice is not one of the 5 grains. You can't make matzah out of it. You don't get karet. And yet they say here that although it's really not the status of the other 5 grains, but what did the Braita say? You make a mizonot on the rice bread that fell into your soup. Elalav Rabbanani. Utayufta de Rav Shmuel. So this contradicts Rav and Shmuel. Because Rav and Shmuel said that on rice and on millet, you don't make a mizonot. This Braita says if you have rice bread that you threw into a soup and it retained its rice bread properties, mizonot. And we know that it's the Rabbanan Shita, not Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. So now you can't blame everything on Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri anymore. This is the Rabbanan, and yet they still say that the rice bread is mizonot. So therefore, the Gemara says, Tiyuvta de Rav Shmuel. Now let me just speak out something very important now. The Rishonim say that even though Rav and Shmuel were asked a very strong question, and it seems that in Halacha the Gemara doesn't want to follow them. So we're going to make a mizonot on, it's a big machlokes Rishonim, on rice. But the other part of Rav and Shmuel was not yet knocked out. The part that when they said, so fine, there's a 6th grain. There is a 6th grain that you make a mizonot on. They said only 5 you make a mizonot. No, there's a 6th one too. Rice. But the other one that they said, that when you have the 5 grains, and they're even they're secondary or a 3rd item in right, kol sheyeshbo, that hasn't been destroyed yet. And that member of Rav and Shmuel is still alive and well. That even if you're the minority from the 5 grains, you will still make a mezonot. And they also say, the Rishonim, that halacha of Rav and Shmuel also only applies to the 5 grains and not to rice. Even though we just said, 1 second, we're not going with Rav and Shmuel, there's a 6th one. So the 6th one should also have that halacha that if it's the minority. No, it doesn't. Rice, even if you make a mizonot, the Sfardim make, what do they make on rice? Mizonot. But if you have rice or rice flour that's mixed into a dish and it's not the majority, you will not follow the rice and say, oh, I have a mizonot in here. I heard that the halacha is that if there's a mizonot inside, you make mizonot. No, that's only on the 5 grains. Rice, if it becomes the minority, you follow the rest of the majority, the other things inside of it. Okay, let's continue now. Says Gemara, Amar Mar.
So is the rice bread mezonot? Or
It seems to me that's mezonot. Before you do that, we have to look in Shulchan Aruch. Okay? But that's what it looks like over here.
Rice doesn't become the priority if it's mixed in with other things. Usually,
Rice doesn't. So why do rice make it? So what is rice? It's like some sort of interesting in between. You didn't. So why is it? So why does it make it at all? The answer is it's really not one of the Chameshes Min Dagan that the Torah spoke of Chita Se'ora, because Chita and Se'ora are the main ones the Torah speaks about, and they're related. Chita is related to spelt. Spelt is a cousin, and oats and rye are really in the family of barley. So really, they're like the fathers. Chitas and the spelt is like, all right, and the seora. I don't know if it's mamash. I don't know if I use the right terminology, avot and toldot, but it's like the main one out of them. Fine. Rice is not one. So rice doesn't get out, but rice makes it. You get mizonot. You know why? Because it's so filling. Since it's as filling, that's why when you eat it by itself, mizonot. But it doesn't become one of the minei dogma, the great princes of the land, that you always have to follow it and say, oh, you're in there, we follow you.
Well, let's say putting rice in just for the filling itself, mixed up with everything. Does it lose it? Because the whole reason why it's mizonot is because of the filling.
True. But you have to be, it's true. It has to be explained.
If it's part of it only because of the filling, then if you put it in mixed up, then it should be.
So what you're really saying is that the reason why we follow the 5 grains when they're the minority is not only because they're filling. Yeah. They have something else.
Yeah, they have a crown on top of it.
The crown, the fact that the Torah gave them that they're the main staple, and rice wasn't included that. Yeah. Rice says, yeah, but I look like you. The knockoff brand, right? The one that looks like the Nike sneakers, right? I look like you. It's made in China, right? So I look like you, and I also jump as high as you. It's very nice, but you're not the real thing.
But I'm feeling like you.
I know, but but the filling wasn't the reason why, when they're the minority, we follow them. Yeah. That wasn't the only reason. That's how the Achronim say. What you're pointing out is that Achronim speak this out. There's another factor that gives them that status, which rice doesn't have. We have to continue now. Okay? Amar Mar. Sorry, I had to move, yeah? I hope I answered you. Amar Mar. We're going back to the din of eating a kernel of wheat raw. You make a borei pri adama. But there's a brighter that says you don't say borei pri adama. You say borei minei ziraim. Okay, because it's not a yirakot, it's not a pri adama. It's a zera, it's a seed that you put in, and it grows out these kernels. Kernels are more like ziraim, like legumes, beans, and such things. Corn, wheat. So the Gemara says, "Lo kasha, ha Rabbi Yehuda, ha Rabbanan." It's the Rabbi Yehuda of our Mishnah. That's the one that says, "Borei minei ziraim." The Tanan. Rabbi Yehuda said that you always have to be very careful, and you have to be mefaret. You have to be very specific in the bracha. So the Chachamim say everything that grows in the ground is under one banner. Borei peri ha'adama, the fruit of the ground. You don't have to speak you don't have to mention in the bracha the specificity of what it is. But Rabbi Yehuda says no, you do. And therefore, if you're eating dishaim, grass-like things from the ground, you say dishaim. More like legumes and beans and seeds and kernels, you say ziraim. And therefore, that braita that said that if you eat a kernel of wheat, you make ziraim, is Rabbi Yehuda. We don't pass on Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore, if you take kernels of wheat, you throw them in the toaster, and you have toasted kernels, you make a borei peri ha'adama. Amar ma'akoset orez. If you eat straight raw rice, right? This is the bread that we brought before. You made a bread out of it, and then you cook the bread, even though the pieces are still intact. So at the after bracha is ala michya, mizonot and ala michya. That's what it said in the Breita. It's not going to be hamotzi lechem min haaretz, because the highest point that rice can ever reach is borei minei mizonot. It's not from the chameshet minei dagan, but we call it mazon because it fills. Fine, you're not going to be hamotzi lechem min haaretz, and therefore you make a mizonot, and afterwards al hamichya. So the Gemara asks v'hatayni, but we learned lebsof v'lo klum. But we learned in a Breita that says that afterwards you don't make any bracha. Now, what it means any, it doesn't mean you don't make any bracha. It means you don't make any of the brachot that you have to make after you eat the shiv'at haminin, which is the bracha achat me'en shelo. You don't make ala gefen, ala eitz, ala bichya, right? That you don't make, which means the borei nefashot you make. So the Gemara says, so if you hear, you have a bright that says, you don't make ala mechia, you make berachot nefashot. Amar Rav Sheshet lo kasha. Harav Gamliel v'harabanan. When it says you make ala mechia, that follows Rabbi Gamliel. But the Rabbanan argue, and they say you make a berachot nefashot. The Tanya, because we learned in the Braita, Zeh Aklal, this is the rule. Kol shu mishvat haminim. Listen to this Braita. Anything that is from the shiv'at haminim, Rabbi Gamliel omer shalosh berachot. If you eat a kizayit of pomegranate, you finish, you make a bora priya etz on it. Now I'm done. Now what do I make? Bikat hamazon. Bikat hamazon. Because the pasuk there, we'll see about it later on. We'll get it all into the psukim of how they get to their opinions when the Gemara brings them later on. Okay, we'll get that soon in this parak.
Regular
Pomegranate, date, fig, olives, grapes.
You eat a kazayit of that, you have to do a katamazon.
Maybe a kibetza, because you have to get full. But yeah, if you just eat that, bikat hamazon. Why? Because the pasuk that says ve'achalta v'stavata uverachta is right after. Actually, if you would read the psukim, you would follow. You would think that Rabbi Gamliel is correct. You would agree with him, because it says there the pasuk before it speaks about the 7 species, and then it says if you eat them and you get full, uverachta, bless Hashem, chiyuv deoraita bikat hamazon.
Why can't it be brachta me'ayin shalosh?
Because that pasuk, uverachta, the Gemara learns out, we're going to see later, that's bikat hamazon. Okay? So, v'chachamim omrim bracha achat me'en shalosh. They say, no such thing. They say, you make an ala mechia, or an ala etz, whatever, ala perot, whatever you're eating, depending on what you're eating. Okay? There's a story there on the second floor, and they were eating a meal, Rabbi Gamliel and the Zekanim, in Yericho, and they brought them dates, ve'achlu, and they ate them. And Rabbi Gamliel gave reshut to Rabbi Akiva to be mevarech and be motzi. In those days, one person said the Bekat Hamazon. We're going to learn about it in the 7th parak, Bezrat Hashem. We're going to learn all about Bekat Hamazon. And he said you could make the Bekat Hamazon kafatz. So Rabbi Akiva jumped up quickly. Uberach Rabbi Akiva brachat me'en shalosh. He made an alam etz ve'al priya etz, like what we do, right? On Tamarim. Amalei Rabbi Gamliel. He didn't want him to do that. He wanted him to. His shita is Bekat Hamazon. He said, "Ad matay ata machnis v'shcha ben hamachloket." Until what point are you going to stick your head into the machloket between me and the chachamim? Okay? So, Rabbi Akiva was his Talmud. So he said, you're not allowed to be machriya and decide who's right between the Amalot Rabbeinu, our rabbi, Afal Pishata Omer Ken, V'chavirecha Omrim Ken, Limadetena Rabbeinu, Yachid V'Rabim, Halacha Karabim. You're right, you're my rabbi, and they argue with you. But you taught us yourself, Yachid V'Rabim, Halacha Karabim. Okay, let's continue in the Braita. So now we have the Machloket. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishmo. Rabbi Yehuda now says in the name of Rabbi Gamliel. Okay? That Rabbi Gamliel said, Kol Shu Mishivat Haminin. The Bach. V'lav min daganu. Or min dagan v'lo aso pat. Anything that is from the Shivat Haminim and is not one of the grains. Or any, which is the 5 fruits there that are not the grains. Or min dagan, or even if it's from the 5 grains. V'lo aso pat. Even if it's a grain, but you didn't make it into a bread. Rather, you cooked a dish out of it. You made oatmeal, for example. Rabbi Gamliel omer shalosh berachot. Rabbi Gamliel says that you make Bekat Hamazon, which means even if you didn't make it into bread, you say Bekat Hamazon. V'chachamim omrim bracha achat. You say ala michya. Kol she'enu lo mishivat haminin v'lo midagan. Says the Braita, this is the most important part. Listen to this. Anything that's not from the 7 species, and it's not from a grain, okay? Kigon, for example, pat, orez, v'dochan, like a bread made out of rice or millet. Rabbi Gamliel omer bracha achat me'in shalosh. Rabbi Gamliel says you make al hamichya. Here Rabbi Gamliel agrees that this is where you go for the al hamichya. It's not one of the 7 species. So even though you made a bread out of the rice, it's al hamichya. V'achachamim omrim v'lo klum. You don't make any of these al hamichya or birkat hamazon, which means you make a borei nefashot. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, there's a machloket between Rabbi Gamliel and the Chachamim. If you make a al hamichya, according to Rabbi Gamliel, the Chachamim say borei nefashot. So therefore, Rav Sheshet is answering a beautiful answer. What was the kasha? The kasha is that we have one braita that says you make an al hamichya for rice, and the other one says you make a borei nefashot. So Rav Sheshet says, big deal. It's a famous machloket, Rabbi Gamliel and Chachamim. So the braita that says al hamichya is Rabbi Gamliel. The one that says v'lo klum is the Chachamim. It's beautiful. It's not a stira in the braitot. It's a machloket a braitot. Where do we ever find such a machloket? In this braita that I just brought you. Okay? So we follow Chachamim, according to Rav Sheshet, we'll make borei nefashot on rice, which is what you do, right? Exactly. So it's very nice. And this is, you see, now you know why you're doing things from all these Gemarot and all these questions. So the Gemara says, B'mayo kimta. Says the Gemara, so what did you say, Rabbi Gamliel? So you're saying that the braita that we mentioned before that said that you make a ala michya on the rice bread is, on the rice kedera, is Rabbi Gamliel. So you want to make that braita Rabbi Gamliel? It's going to be a problem. Because in that same very braita, Ema Sefer the Reisha, we'll look at the end of the Reisha, it says there, Imena prusot kayamot, if the bread pieces that you put into the soup fall apart, batchila mivarech alea borei minim zanot, v'labsof mivarech alea bracha achat mein shalosh. You make a mizanot, and afterwards you make al hamichya, money. Who is that like? Rabbi Gamliel. If it's Rabbi Gamliel, hashta. Now take a look. Now says the Gemara, akotavot on tamarim ve'adaisa, and on cereal made out of the 5 grains. Amar Rabbi Gamliel shalosh berachot. Do you make birkat hamazon? So im ena prusot kayamot mibai. So if the prusot are not kayam, is there even a chidush that you have to tell me? Which means like this. What did the Braita say? The Braita says if you take real bread made out of the 5 grains, put them in a soup, and they lose their bread, the highest level bread, then they go down, and what do you make? You say, Borei minei mizonot, and at the end you make bracha achat mein shalosh. Problem is, what would you say if you hold like Rabbi Gamliel? At what time? You have to make a birkat hamazon. Why? Because it's not going to be worse than eating a date, right? Even if it fell apart. El pshita rabanan. So obviously this braita can't be like Rabbi Gamliel. The braita says if you take bread, you throw it in the soup, and it gets kind of gooey, or whatever the word is, it loses its bread-like. Okay, so it loses bread-like, but it's not going to not be from the 5 species. And for the 5 species, it's not going to be worse than the dates and the pomegranates, which he says you make a birkat hamazon. So how does the braita say that you don't make a birkat hamazon, you make al hamichya on it? Must be it's the Rabbanan that say that if it's not bread and it's a 5 minei dagan, so it's Rabbanan. And yet, ihachi kasha de Rabbanan. Now you have a real problem. Because the Rabbanan are saying that braita, and that braita is saying that if it falls apart, you make on real wheat bread. You make ala michya, that's the Rabbanan shita, that's not Rabbi Gamliel, he would have said birkat hamazon. And yet the other part of the braita says that after you eat rice, you make ala michya. You try, well, the Chachamim don't hold that you make ala michya. We just Rav Sheshet brought the other braita, that on rice, you make v'lo klum. You make a borei nefashot, so make up your mind. So the Gemara says, Ela la'olam rabbanan. The Gemara says, you're right, we surrender. You're right, that Braita is the Rabbanan. Utani gabe orez, v'lapsof ena mevarach alav v'lo klum. And you have to add into the Braita and say that when you make a bread out of orez, that's a little bit different. The Braita says like this: after you put the bread, wheat bread, into the soup, and it falls apart, it's ala mechya. And then the Braita has to add, but if it's rice bread that you threw into the soup, then not only did it lose, right? So then it's going to, the most it could ever be is going to be berachot nefashot. Berachot nefashot. Okay? Amar Rava. Rava said, Hayriyata de chaklai. So we just put together all these braitot, who they are and what the halacha is. So what do we have so far about that? Let's just wrap it up. We have Rav and Shmuel that says the 5 minei dagon are so great that even if a little bit of them are in something, you make mizonot. That's what it said. If it's a devik ba'alma, maybe not, fine. Rice, the Gemara said, even though Rav and Shmuel didn't want to include it at all and never give it a mizonot, the Gemara brought a braita that said it is mizonot, it fills you up, but it doesn't have those properties that even the minority will change the whole bracha of the entire dish. We also have a question about what, so you make a borei minei mizonot on it, and not a hadama once you cook it up unless you eat it straight. Now, what happens if you, what do you make after the rice? So we had a machloket, a braitot, and we came out that you make a borei nefashot. Amar Rava. Hi Riyata. Yeah.
We should make shako. It's mixed up.
What? Sushi? It's you see, you're going to the big shilas now. I don't know. There's a big chuvot on sushi. I don't know. What I saw. Now, it's a great question because of what we just said. Yeah. We said that we don't really care. We don't follow the rice like it's the king over here. So it really has to be the majority, or it has to be the main reason why I'm eating this item, right? So.
You're eating it mainly because of the fish.
Right, so that's the big shayla that everybody has.
Hold it together.
Yeah, hold it together, but I don't know if that's something. Oh, you mean like the devik? But it's not only for the devik. It's not just to hold it. You can use a fork to hold it if you wanted to just eat the raw fish.
No, the roll itself is held by the rice. That's what holds it.
Yeah, but it's not. But it's not only there to hold something, right? You also want to enjoy the rice. It tastes good with the rice. If it was just to hold it, you could take a fork and put it into the raw fish. You're not just using it. It's not consistency. It's not for binding agents. It does hold it together, and it's an added benefit. But you want rice; it tastes good with the rice. I don't know the answer, but I think most poskim say, I think Rav Mansur it's mizonot, right?
The Gemara that we're learning right now.
It shouldn't be, because why? Because the majority. One second, is the majority of the fish?
It's the majority, and it's also mixed up.
No, I think the majority is the rice.
If you have one slide, then you have the cucumber, then you have this.
If you take out one piece, you put it on the table, you separate it. The most of it is the rice. The rice is like a thick tire around the inside.
But what are you eating the fish? You're eating the sushi because it's the fish.
Okay.
You're not going to take. I mean, somebody.
Since you're eating it, since you're eating it for both purposes, so the halacha is that if you have a dish that doesn't have 5 grains, all right? Then you follow the majority of the dish. Okay? So that's l'chora what you're going to do over here as well.
Okay. Based on what we're learning, it's a shiloh. I mean, based on.
It is a shiloh, but the only shiloh could be that, let's say a guy says, I just want, if I don't really want the rice that much. Just want the fish. Maybe you can get what? What is that called?
Fish.
Sashimi, that's just fish.
Just the fish.
Right. But let's say they didn't have sashimi, whatever. Someone brought home, right? He's at home, this is what he's eating. That's where your question will get a little bit more vibrancy. Okay, I don't know the answer exactly. I still think you make a mizonot. Because you're enjoying it. Okay, now, let's say you have cheesecake. And the bottom is, chameshet mina dagan. So there the poskim say, I have to see exactly how the Sfarim and Paskin exactly, but I think the psak is like this. What is, you have that thin little layer. It's similar to lahavdil, make a little separation between the chicken with the breadcrumbs, right? So the cheesecake with the little layer on the bottom of the graham crackers on the bottom. So you would say the whole thing is mizonot, right? So the whole thing is mizonot, even though 95% is this big piece of cheese, which is all she'akol, sugar and milk and eggs.
That takes over. It's different.
It takes over. But they do say that there are some people, and I've met these people, and I think they're probably in this room also.
But we're learning that rice doesn't take over.
But it's not rice.
Okay.
So the chamesh mina dagan.
Yeah.
So some people, they only eat, they say, I don't like the bottom of the cheesecake at all. So I'm like, why do you eat it? So they say, because it just holds it. I'm here just for the cheese. I ignore that. So there they say that maybe even though even the minority, it always takes over, it becomes the ikar, and everything else becomes tafel. But here I don't really want it at all. It's just actually holding, it's like a plate that shouldn't fall apart. So you need like a base on the bottom, so it should, it should be a strong base. So those shitot, they get into those people, they might have to make a different bracha on the cheesecake, they might have to make a she'akol. Could they ignore the mizonot entirely? That's also not so pashut.
That's if they don't eat it, but if they eat it, they have to say mezonot, because regardless, it's status quo and it fills you up as well. Whether you like it or not, whether you're eating it or not, you still have to say mezonot.
L'chayr, you're right.
You should just take it away and just eat the shako part.
L'chayr, you're right. Exactly. Amar Rava, hayriyat the chakloi. Let's go for another 5.
Based on what we're learning, it makes sense.
All right. Let's go for another 5 minutes, okay? Let's try. Amar Rava, hayriyat the chakloi the mafshe kimcha. If you have a chavitz k'deira, what's that made out of? That's the dish made out of honey and flour. Chakloi means of the villages, the mapshe bekimcha, that you put in a lot of flour. Mivarech b'noim mizonot, my time it is midaikar. Then you make mizonot because the flour becomes the main thing. But the kuzah, but once you get into the city, to the main city, not the villages, there they make it differently. Okay? The lo mapshe bekimcha, they don't put so much flour in there. Mivarech alav shakol niye b'dvaro. My time, and why? Because the honey is the main thing. The Hada Amar Rav, and then Rav changed his mind. He said, no, Idi Beremin Mizanot. They're both Beremin Mizanot. We really had this before. The Rav Shmuel, the Amrit Havayu, Kol Sheyesh V'Chamesh Taminim V'Chin Alav Beremin Mizanot. Even though it is the minority, but since you're enjoying it, and it's there for the taste and to fill you up, we follow it and we make it Beremin Mizanot. Amar Rav Yosef. Hai Chavitza. Okay? This chavitza, what's chavitza? It's like breadcrumbs, like the small pieces of bread that got cooked. The itbe pirurin kizayit. So, if they're kizayit, the size are kizayit, batchila mevarech alav hamotzi lach min arz. Kizayit is very small, but the size of an olive. So then you make hamotzi lach min arz, v'lapsof mevarech alav shalosh berachot. Because since they're kazayit, even though they got cooked and they became this thing that everybody calls a chavitza, they're still considered bread, and therefore they maintain their bread status and they maintain their berachot of bread. The let pepirun kazayit, but if the pieces are now minimized, you threw in pieces that were smaller than a kazayit into the pot, batchila mevarech alav borei mizonot. Labsof bracha achat mein shalosh. Okay? It's not going to maintain its status as bread, and you're going to make a borei min mizonot, and at the end you're going to make mein shalosh. Okay?
Can you give an example of pita chips?
Well, let's be very loyal to the Braita. Bread that you baked, and now you cut into smaller than kizayit pieces. If that's what pita chips is, then fine. But I don't know what pita chips are exactly. It's complicated, everything. There's a lot of little different complications, so I'm not sure right now. Because it depends how they make the pita chips, if they fry them, if they bake
Yeah,
they bake them.
Then they fry them. It's not. It's the most. It's the problem with those.
Right?
They make the pita pita, and then they cut it up and fry them with the chips. They make the pita.
Yeah, but over here he's saying that even if you make it the chatchila pita, but now they're smaller than a kazait, and now you throw them
into soup.
Right, until you cook them. So now they go down into mezonot and ala michya. Okay?
But if you eat enough of it, it becomes a motzi, no?
Well, possibly because all mezonot, once you eat a lot of it, it turns into, it becomes, you koveas through down it, and maybe it will turn into, but there are some things that don't, actually. Okay, but that's what he says. Amar Rav Yosef, Meno Amin Allah. How do I know? By the way, that's the way he learns the Braita before Tosfot says. Remember the Braita that we said, in prusot kayamot, if they stay intact or not kayamot? Tosfot says Rav Yosef understands that Braita that we learned before as kayamot means kizayit and not kayamot means small, less than a kizayit. Okay? Let's continue. Amar Rav Yosef Beno Aminallah. Says Rav Yosef, how do I know that if they're the size of a kizayit, then they are, even though they go into the soup, they're considered bread. Titania, hayam makriv menachot b'Yerushalayim. A Jew who gave a korban mincha to a kohen in the Beit HaMikdash to offer his mincha in Yerushalayim, to bring it on the mizbeach. Omer, if he hasn't brought a korban mincha in a long time, he says, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu lecholam, shechiyanu v'kiyimanu v'giyanu lazman hazeh. Because he's doing a mitzvah that he hasn't done in a long time. Natlan, we're going to all make that bracha bezrat Hashem today. Natlan, le'achlan, mevarech hamotzi lechem min haaretz. And now the kohen comes and he wants to eat, right? He gets the shirayim of the mincha. You take one little komet, you put it on the mizbech, and the rest of this mincha is given to the kohen to be eaten. So what does he do when he eats the mincha? Mevarech hamotzi lechem min haaretz. V'tani Allah. And there's also a Mishnah that adds to this in regards to a mincha that was fried in a pan or in a deep pan. V'kulam potetan kizayit. Now the halacha is like this, that there are certain types of minachot that you fry first, like pita that you fry like that, and you have to make sure it doesn't turn into chametz, not like right. And then you take from those pieces and you do komets, which is like that. You take this amount, not from the flour, but from the already fried pieces, and you put them on the mizbech. Okay? So now, all those pieces you break into pieces that are kizayit. And what does the Mishnah say? And what did we just learn? That when the kohen comes and he eats them, he makes mivarech hamotzi lechem min haaretz. So you see that as long as the pieces are the size of a kizayit, even though they're thrown into a pot or a pan and fried and cooked, the kohen still makes hamotzi lechem min haaretz. So that's my proof that bread that gets cooked is still considered bread. Okay? Now, even though you don't really cook minachot, you fry them. Tosafot says frying and cooking are the same.
We understand that cooking is shita kazayit. Even minachot, you have to put a kazayit.
Well, that Mishnah says the kulam potedan kazayit. So they stayed a kazayit, and yet, even though they were fried, and Tosafot says that Rabbi Yosef compares that to cooking, frying, it still is hamotzi lechem min haaretz. So that's why I know that bread that was cooked, as long as it stayed a large size, it doesn't lose it's status. So you're going to tell me, you're going to tell me that according to Rabbi Tanadvei Rabbi Shmuel, that the mitzvah is a mitzvah of petita, of breaking. Okay, this is the mitzvah that we just spoke about before. You have to break them into pieces. Patot ota pitim. As a little boy, my Rosh Yeshiva used to bang that into our brains, always from Vayikra. And we said it in Ashkenazi from Pasois oiso pitim. So he used to say, Pasos oisapitim, you break it into pieces, Pasos oisapit. The whole class, we'd say it tons of times throughout the day. That one of the mitzvot of a korban mincha is to break it into pieces. Rabbi Shmuel says, you know what you do with the bread that you break into pieces? You break it back into the tiniest flour. So, are you going to tell me that according to Rabbi Shmuel, now that they didn't maintain their kizayit size, so you're not going to make hamotzi lechem in haaretz? So it's only according to the shitot that hold that you break them into kizayit, you make hamotzi lechem in haaretz, but according to Rabbi Shmuel, not? If you're going to say me, yeah, that's true. Yeah, you won't. But we learned in the Braita, liket mikulan kizayit, if you gather from all the little pieces of menachot, and all together I gathered enough to get a kizayit. Va'achlan and I ate them. Im chametzu, if they are chametz, anush kares. Then you get karet because you just ate the person get not you chas v'shalom, the person ate a kizayit of chametz. V'imatzahu adam yotzei bo yedei chavato bepesach. Okay, it's a little bit problematic. You could actually use this. You put them all together, and that's enough because you ate a kizayit of non-chametz. So you get the mitzvah of matzah. Now it's a little bit problematic because the mincha can't be chametz. So how can it say it's chametz? So we'll leave it on the side for a little bit. Who is this brayso like? The brayso is like the Tana Devei Rabbi Shmuel or like the Tana Kama? It's obviously Tana Devei Rabbi Shmuel. Why? Because it says you have menachot, and you gathered little pieces all together, you got to a kazayit. That means before you gathered them, the pieces were less than a kazayit. I thought you were supposed to break the pieces into a kazayit. How are they less? So it's Tana Devei Rabbi Shmuel that says that you make them back into fine flour. But you took from the fine flour and you gathered it back to a kazayit. Right? So we see it's Tana Devei Rabbi Shmuel, and yet it says that that they're considered lechem, because it says here that you're able to be yotzei the mitzvah of matzah on Pesach. How can you do that on Pesach if it's not bread? You need lechem oni, and obviously it's Rabbi Shmuel. So Rabbi Shmuel also holds that what? That you're going to have to make hamotzi lechem min haaretz. So if you according to what you're saying, Rav Yosef, Rabbi Shmuel shouldn't be making hamotzi lechem min haaretz because they're less than a kazayit. So the Gemara says each piece individual is less than a kazayit. So the Gemara answers hacham b'mayaskinan b'she'er sam. We're talking about you took the little fine flour and you made it into a dough again. You remade a dough. Meaning you put a little more liquid inside and you rolled it together, and now they became one clump, one new piece, which is the size of a kazayit. That's why it's considered lechem, and you'll be able to be yotzei the mitzvah of matzah if it's not chametz. So the Gemara says, Ihachi, if that's what happened, Ema Sefer, let's take a look at the Sefer. The Sefer says, V'hu she'achlan b'chdei achilat pras. It says there that if a person eats chametz, a kazayit of it, he'll get karet. And the Braita then says, only if you ate it within the amount of time, to eat achilas pras. What's that? It's about between 2 and 9 minutes. So the Gemara says, V'i b'she'ersan hay she'achlan she'achlo mibaylei. Then it shouldn't have spoken the plural. It shouldn't have said, if you eat all the pieces within 9 minutes. It should have said that you ate it, because you made it into a new piece. It's one thing. So the Gemara says, you're right. You're right, it's not talking about that you made it into one piece. Which means, if the pieces that are less than a kazayit came from a large piece of bread, okay, and the large piece of bread is still intact, you still have half of the bread there. So then, even the pieces that are less than a kazayit will still retain and maintain their bread status. But and that's why you're able to be yotzei matzah, even though the pieces were less than a kazayit. But if the entire bread doesn't exist anymore, and the whole thing was made less than a kazayit, then you don't make hamotzi anymore. So the Gemara says, "My have Allah, Amar Rav Sheshet, Hay chavitza afagav deletli bepirurin kizayit, mivarech alav amotzi lechem min haaretz. So Rav Sheshet says, this chavitza, even though it doesn't have pirurin of kizayit, you make hamotzi lechem min haaretz, not like Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef says if you break up the whole thing less than kizayit, and you cook it up, you cook it in the pot, it's not a hamotzi. Rav Sheshet doesn't go like him. Amar Rav Avu de ikaleh turitid in hama. I agree with you, Rav Sheshet, but he explains, as long as they still have the appearance of bread. That means you can take a bread and rip it apart into pieces that are less than a kazayit. And Rav and Rav Sheshet are saying that you will make hamotzi lechem min haaretz as long as they still appear like bread. Once they lose that appearance, right? Now, when is that exactly? Now, it's not so simple because with the sugya over here, like Rashi, Tosafot has a little bit of a different way of learning the sugya of what this whole case of chavitza is. According to Tosafot, it's not really cooked items. It's items, little pieces of bread that got stuck together with honey or with soup. And that's really the way the Shulchan Aruch goes like Tosafot and the Rosh. We kept on saying, chavitza is something, because I was telling you like Rashi the whole time, that you cook into a soup. Okay? Tosafot doesn't say that. So, according to Tosafot, if you cook it and it's less than a kazayit, the cooking itself already ruins the appearance. According to Rashi, in the soup itself, there's two levels. Does it still have the appearance? Does it not have the appearance? Tosafot holds the very nature of cooking is not the appearance of bread. That's not bread. So if you look in Shulchan Aruch, he goes more like Tosafot. And Tosafot learns that this halacha is only when you stick pieces together, not through cooking, but rather through honey or soup. And then it will depend on if the appearance is still there or not. Chazak Baruch, a great day, Rabotai.